Right. So today's lesson, it's the we discuss about grammar, we discuss about lexis, we discuss about functions. Those are the three pillars which is needed to teach the language, or if you want to learn the language. So in those three areas, you have to learn all, not one. Like sometime back in 80s, before 80s, it was only grammar. Then the function started in 90s and 80s. The function started with that. So now is the latest one is we teach language, grammar plus its function. And vocabulary is important part in order to understand the meaning and how the words are related to each other. We talk about that. Now we will be talking about and discussing the skills of language. There are four skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So unit 5 reading, unit 6 is uh, writing, and 7 unit 7 is listening, unit 8 is speaking. So we will get into the detail of it. Like so far you may know that these are the skills, but in these skills, what are the sub skills or which we teach to the student in order to increase their understanding in the language. So we will be going into detail of that. Worksheet, you will get one worksheet for all these four together. So today's lesson, I will not give the worksheet. A worksheet will be given to you once all four skills are over. Okay. So combine all four skills. You have to do practice of one worksheet and checking that the difference between that and the similarities between that. All right. And how we teach that in the class. So let me share the screen with you. Right. Is it readable for you?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So the first is reading. If you see what is reading, reading is one of the four skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. It is a receptive skill, like listening. So what does it mean? Reading and listening both are receptive skills. Highlight the receptive skills. What does this mean when we say receptive skills? Receptive skills, this means it involves responding to text rather than producing it. What do? We respond to the text. We don't produce that. When we respond to mean, it comes to us. We are at the receiving end. Reading, so if we read a book, it comes to us. If we listen something, it comes to us. But when we speak, it goes from us to others. When we write, it goes from us to others. So those two skills are called productive skills. And these two, reading and listening, are called receptive skills. Is this point clear? Put thumbs please over there. If it is clear, then I can
Yes,
go
sir.
ahead. Right. Very simply, we can say that reading involves making sense of written text. Now, when we read, so definitely that something which we read is written. So we are making sense of the written text by reading it and by understanding it. To do this, we need to understand the language of the text at word level, sentence level, or whole text level. So now you just remind yourself what we discussed before. Word level. If you come to the word level, vocabulary, each word you try to understand. Sentence level, then grammar is involved. The sentence is at what level? Is it present, past, future? Okay. And as a whole text level, there is a complete one text. Text is kind of a little bit more than a paragraph. Okay. So we try to understand a reading through writing. Something is written, then we read it. And we understand it at the word level, we understand it at the sentence level, and as a whole text level. Means sometimes you may confuse with the word, but when you read the whole, then it is clear to you what does it mean. We also need to connect the message of the text to our knowledge of the world. Highlight this, knowledge of the world. Okay, this is something, an important role in the reading. We have to see what is it. Look at this sentence, for example. The boy was surprised because the girl was much faster at running than he was. Now, it's a sentence. We are trying to understand the meaning of this sentence. So, to understand this sentence, we need to understand what the letters are, how the letters join together to make words, what the words mean, and the grammar of the words and the sentence. We need to understand the meaning. We need to understand the connection between the words to grammar rules. But we also make sense of this sentence by knowing that, generally speaking, girls do not run as fast as boys. Our knowledge of the world helps us understand why the boy was surprised. Now, the boy was surprised, what we read in that sentence, and he was surprised because generally speaking. Now, when I say generally speaking, this generally speaking is based on the knowledge of the social life which we have around us. Okay, like when we give the example in Sinhala, we say Samane Mehema Ne, mean we are giving the understanding of the social life that commonly it doesn't happen in that way. So if you see girls and boys competition, so usually boys are faster in running than the girls. Now do not take it to the other side, the feminism side, okay? If that is the brain side, brain wise, there is no difference. It can be a boy, it can be a girl. But physically, like boys physically are different way than the girls. So when it comes the laborious kind of thing, okay, so they are performing better in that way. That is why here the boy was surprised why this girl is faster than me. Now, due to the knowledge of the world, he is surprised. But if there is no knowledge of the world, nobody knows what's a boy, what's a girl, and a girl runs fast, so the boy will not surprise. Why? Because he doesn't know anything that usually girls are not faster than the boy. Are you getting this point? Knowledge of the world, I am talking to you. Knowledge of the world is clear? Right. So, we will go a little bit ahead and discuss it further in the key concept. If you see in the key concept, A text is usually longer than just a word or a sentence. Highlighted. Text, when we say text, it's usually longer than word and sentence. It often contains a series of sentences, as in a letter or even a postcard. Connected text is referred to. Now, highlight this connected text. What do you mean by connected text? Connected text is referred to as a discourse. Now, you need to know what discourse is. Discourse is when a text is connected sentences, words together. That is, we call connected text. Later on, we will say connected speech when it comes to the listening and speaking area. So here you keep it connected text. Right. So where were we? Where were we? Here. Discourse is connected by grammar, vocabulary, and our knowledge of the world. Now here, three things they just tell you. First of all, connected text is referred to as discourse. When we say discourse, it means what is written over there, sentences, words together and making a text. That is called discourse, connected text. Okay. Now, discourses consist of what? Grammar, vocabulary, and our knowledge of the world. Knowledge of the world, I made it clear to you. And grammar and vocabulary already you know because you have gone into detail of this in the previous units. Reading involves understanding these connections. So now when we want to read something, we try to understand the connection between these: grammar, vocabulary, and discourse. Knowledge of the world we use by understanding what's written through the rules of grammar and meaning of the words, and then we understand what does it mean, what's written over there. For example, now we will come down to that example which we gave in the previous paragraph. The boy was surprised because the girl was much faster at running than he was. But after he found out that her mother had won a medal for running at the Olympic Games, he understood. Now, how he understood? By knowledge of the world about the Olympic Games. If he doesn't know what Olympic Games is, then even if you tell her mother was a runner and she has won a medal for running in the Olympics, but if the person doesn't know what Olympic is and what's the criteria for the Olympic athlete, whether they are best in the world and how it happened, they go through a lot of training and they know a lot of techniques. That's why she has taught to the girl, and that's how she is faster than him. Now, he understood why, because he knows about that, and that he understood through the knowledge of the world. The second sentence gives us possible reason why the girl was so good at running. But we can only understand this is a reason if we know that Olympic runners are very good. This means we need to use our knowledge of the world to see the sense connection between the two sentences. Highlight this: the sense connection between the two sentences. And that is called coherence. Then the next, you have to highlight the grammatical links between the sentences. That is called cohesion. Also help us see the connection between them. So when we try to understand a text, we see grammatical connection and we see the sense connection. Sense, you know, right? Common sense. sense. We say nonsense. Why? Because something doesn't make a sense. Then we say it's nonsense. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You got it? If somebody is talking here and there and no connection between that, then you say, what nonsense is she talking or he talking? So sense connection we call coherence, and grammatical connection between the sentences we call cohesion. Is that clear? These two things, coherence and cohesion? If not, please tell me, I explain with some other example. Sumudu is clear. Sumuda, sorry. Niroja?
Clear, sir.
All right. Nilusha? All right. The rest, fine. Good. These two things are important because mostly teachers are confused about these two, cohesion and coherence. And that we will be discussing further in the other sub skills and the skills also. Now here they give example. For example, in the second example, sentence he refers to the boy. In the first sentence, and her refers to the girl. So that's to understand this he and her, we need to understand grammatical rules. Then we can understand this her is used for the girl, that he is used for the boy. So grammar knowledge is needed. Linking the sentence, there is the conjunction after. We need to know what's the role of the conjunction, how it's linking the sentences with each other, and why they have used after there. So understanding a written text involves understanding the language of each sentence and the relationship between sentences, using our knowledge of the word and our knowledge of the word. No, sorry, knowledge of the language and our knowledge of the word. So in order to understand a text, we need to know the knowledge of the language and knowledge of the word, both. All right? Otherwise, we can't make connection in between that. Further, reading also involves using different reading skills. It includes reading for specific information. It is also called scanning, reading for details, deducing meaning from context, understanding text structure, reading for gist. It is also called skimming, inferring, predicting. These are the sub skills of the reading, which we will continue on the next page, and we will get into the detail of that. Right. So here in this first paragraph, you see it is also called sub skills. Okay. So why we need these skills? Because we do not read all the things in the same way. We read different things in different way. Different way mean how much we focus on it. Do we have to focus the whole or certain things? Okay, like if you are reading your directory of the phone, somebody's number you are checking, you are not reading the whole directory. If you are looking for your name on the list on a notice board, so you are not reading the whole notice, what is it there? You are looking for your name and you are scrolling to that. Eyes are going and finding that different one. But if you are learning something which is for your exam purpose, your knowledge you are gaining, then you read in a different way. Then you are focusing on each and every word and lines and sentences, and you go through that and try to understand to the meaning of it. Okay, so different types of reading we do, and those types are, we are going to get into the detail of it. Come to the second paragraph. If we read a text just to find a specific piece of information, we usually use sub-skill called reading for specific information or scanning, highlighted. When we scan, we don't read the whole text. We glance over most of it until we find the information we are interested in. For example, when we look at for a number in a telephone directory, as I give you an example of it. So that type of reading is called reading for specific information or scanning. Is it clear? Fine. So the next one, this is the number one sub-skill. You have to note it down because you will be tested in these sub-skills. On the previous page which we talked, you may be tested about cohesion and coherence. But the rest of the thing which we talk about, it's just an explanation to you to make you understand that what reading is about. So what you will be tested in is sub-skills mostly, and comparison of these sub-skills with the listening, writing, and speaking. Another reading sub-skill is reading for gist or skimming. This is sometimes also called reading for global understanding. So you can call it reading for gist. Sometimes they will say skimming. Sometimes they will say reading for global understanding. Global understanding, overall understanding of the things. It involves glancing to a text to get a general idea of what it is about. For example, you skim when you look quickly through a book in a bookshop to decide if you want to buy it, or when you go quickly to a reference book to decide which part will help you write an essay, or glance at a newspaper article to see if it is worth reading in detail. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
And I hope it is clear to you the difference between scanning and skimming. Right? Third, a third reading sub-skill is reading for detail. It involves getting the meaning out of every word and out of the links and relationships between words and between sentences. If you read a letter from someone you love, who you haven't heard from a long time, you probably read like this. Sometimes in books on English language teaching, but not in the TKT, this skill is called intensive reading. So two things you get, reading for detail or intensive reading. When it happens, intensive means with very much care. ICU stands for intensive care unit, right? In the hospital, where they take extraordinary care of the patients who are serious. So when you are doing reading intensively, it means that's very important reading. It's needed for your exam or some sort of knowledge you are gaining out of it. So you try to understand word by words through the sentences, combination of it, and try to understand all that slowly there. That is called intensive reading or reading for detail. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. Next one is inferring is another skill readers sometimes use to get meaning from a text. When they read, they work out what the writer's opinion on a topic is or what her feeling is. To infer these things, we notice what words, register, grammar, or style the writer has used to refer something. Infer meaning. It is usually in the literature study when we want to know the writer's opinion, the writer's feeling about an object, about a character. So what kind of adjective, adverbs he has used and described different actions, moments, or the character's attitude. So what's the writer is saying about it? Okay. Likewise, different writers, they write their opinion in different newspaper as well. So inferring is another skill that is called inferring. We try to understand what the writer's mind is about this particular subject. In usually those who are teaching or they have done literature, they may know, because it's a common question in the literature, writer's opinion asking from the student about the poem or about the what is it, some reading they have written about. Okay, is it clear? Inferring the meaning is clear. No thumbs are coming up. Is it confused or what? Only Mudita has understood.
So please,
Can you please
All right.
explain it again?
Okay. Inferring is like, if you see, I have written a topic on a subject. Okay. And there I have described different characters. And then for those characters, I have used different kind of words to express. Then, for example, as a writer, likes and dislikes, also if I show some likes and dislikes, there will be words I have used for those likes and dislikes, which you can understand the meaning of that and what the writer has written about that subject. So you infer the attitude of it from the given writings about anything which it is, whether this writer is in favor of it or in against of it, or praising something or depreciating something, what, or appreciating somebody. So you can infer those things from the words used in the text. Is that clear?
sir.
Okay. And how we know to infer these things, we notice the words. Register. Register is the formality, informality of the language we use. Grammar or style the writer has used to refer to something. Writer has talked about something, so you can understand that the way the words are used, the language is used, formality and informality of the language, all this, so you can understand what's the writer's opinion about this particular thing. Right. After that comes, there are other skills the reader can use, which is like deducing meaning from context. Highlighted. Involves reading the words around an unknown word or thinking about situations the unknown word is used in to try and work out its meaning. They have given the example of Portuguese. You can go through that, but I make you understand simply. This is the method we usually apply. When we do not understand the meaning of a word, we try to understand the meaning before and after the words used in the sentence. So we try to figure out the meaning of that particular word. That is called deducing meaning from the context. Is that clear? Usually we teach the children also this thing. If in the exam there is a in the comprehension, you have a word you cannot understand the meaning, read before that and after it, and then figure it out what the possible meaning would be of that word. So that is called deducing meaning from the context. Next comes predicting. Predicting, as is obvious from its name, the meaning. Predicting means using clues before we begin reading to guess what a text may be about. predicting future. That we do predict in future, that Shastra ladies are there and different other people who are telling us what's going to happen to us in the future. So we are going and we putting our future to them, and then they write different things, and then we believe in that. And some don't believe. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. So that is called predicting. So commonly also we use in our day-to-day speaking, predicting. We might, for example, look at a newspaper headlines or photos, the title of a chapter or unit, the name of a writer, or even the stamp and address on an envelope to make an informed guess about the general contents of the text. Sometimes you receive a letter, and by looking to the envelope, the logo, the writing, you understand it's a bill or it's my bank statement. What is it? So without opening, you understand what is it. Is it my dialogue bill? Is it my bank statement? Or what it is? Prediction helps us decide if we wish to read the text. And prediction will help you, okay, if it is a usual statement, then we keep it to a side, we don't read it. Likewise, this thing happens when we are glancing through the newspaper headlines and we see that a news is there, and then we predict what would be further. So we want to further read it or not. Sometimes we just take a book and go through the pages and glancing through it and see whether it's interesting. In the middle, we read something. In the beginning, we see the title and all that, and then we decide to buy it or not. Okay, that is called predicting. So prediction also is a way of reading. Is it clear?
Yes.
All right. So now we will continue to the next page and let's see what is there. Understanding text structure involve understanding how certain types of text generally develop. Text structure, how the structure, the way, the shape of the text is. For example, if we read a problem solution essay, we expect that it will first discuss the problem, then suggest a solution, then draw a conclusion. So that's the usual structure of the problem solving essay. If we read a letter of complaint, it has its own text structure. We generally expect that the first paragraph will say what the writer is writing. The second will give the detail of the complaint, and the third, what the writer wants in answer to his complaint. Readers expect certain information to come in certain sequences. Readers expect certain information to come in certain sequences. Every writing, for example, you receive a invitation card for a wedding. So you know how the information would be given. First, the bride and the groom name, fathers from the father side, and mothers, all these getting married to this, then will be held this day, venue this, your participation. So all this comes in a sequence, it comes, and we expect in that way. So when we want to see the date, we know where the date is mentioned. It's not mentioned on the top, it is down there, the time and venue. So that's how they are talking you here. Readers expect certain information to come in certain sequences. They use this knowledge to know where they are in the text and find their way to it. Understanding the meaning of conjunction is an important part of this skill, as they often signal how an argument will continue or is about to change. Conjunctions, it has an important role in understanding the text structure. Why? Because you are connecting one sentence with another with a conjunction. And when it comes although, So we understand, okay, what's going. Or if it comes on other hand, so we know that, okay, now a different point of view is giving. If we see because, so we know that now they are going to tell us the reason why it happened. So these conjunctions makes us understand the text structure, that what type of argument is coming ahead, what is next in the sentence they are talking about. Okay, so this is called text structure, and everything reading has a different text structure, right? Is that clear? Text structure, it's not a skill, it's general. They are talking to you about what is the text structure. Skill is the next one, which is called extensive reading. Now we discussed about intensive on the previous page. Now it's in extensive reading. What is it? Extensive and intensive reading are ways of reading. Both ways we do reading, extensive also, intensive also. Extensive reading is sometimes called reading for pleasure. Involves reading long pieces of text. For example, a story or an article. As you read, your attention and interest vary. You may read some parts of the text in detail while you may skim through others. So you might use a variety of reading sub-skills. When we read a novel, so we read for pleasure. Compared to that, something which we want to read for the passing the exam. Totally different way of studies. So exam one, we do intensive reading. A novel we do in the extensive way, because we are reading that for pleasure. So something which we like in that character, we read that area. Some we skip and go ahead. Okay. So is it clear? Extensive and intensive reading?
Yes, sir.
Right. Further, they say, now this area is for your general knowledge to make you a little bit further more understand regarding the reading. But the skills which you will be tested, those are up to that. How many skills we discussed? 7 or 6?
I think 8.
8, right. So those areas you need to go through and make yourself understand what they are, okay? Further, we will discuss it in the classroom, how it works. Sometimes, especially in language classrooms, we ask learners to read text so that we can examine the language they contain. For example, we might ask learners to look for all the words in a text related to a particular topic, or work out the grammar of a particular sentence. The aim of these activities is to make learners more aware of how language is used. These activities are sometimes called intensive reading. This way of reading does not involve reading for meaning or comprehension, understanding of the text. Comprehension is understanding of the text, and we do comprehension reading, we do. It involves reading for language studies, sometimes in books on English language teaching, but not in the TKT. This skill is called reading for details. When we read about reading, we need to be quite clear what skill is being referred to in order to not to get confused. Now, what we do in the classroom, we give different types of text to the children. Now, story also we give, they read it. That is for pleasure, to relax them, to build up their reading quickly to that. Okay, get used to the reading, encouraging them. But comprehension one, we try to find out, let them to see how they can find certain information out. Okay. Intensive one, we want to ask them to write a summary on it. Then they have to go through each and every word, and intensive reading they have to do to write the summary. First, they have to understand the whole thing, and they will be able to summarize. So likewise, different types of reading skills, sub-skills we practice in the classroom for different type of development of the subject. And in order to make the children understand that all the time you do not have to read these things in the same way. Sometimes it has to be quick, sometimes it has to be slow, sometimes it has to be quick and slow both. Depends. Is it intensive reading practice? Is it scanning practice or skimming practice? Okay. Understanding different text types is something else good readers can do. Some example of written text types are letters, articles, postcards, stories, information, brochure, leaflets, and poems. Now, if you see, good reader, they can understand the text. Is it a letter or is it a postcard? Is it an invitation or is it an article? Like those who have understanding of the reading, they can analyze that this is taken from a book, maybe is a part of the long story. This is a commentary. This is an article, seems like a newspaper article. This seems like a news from a newspaper. All right. So that's when you can recognize that become you a good reader can recognize these that what they are. And usually we can figure it out. Is it a letter or is it something an invitation card? Even if it is written without the card, but the writing is there, we can understand the text type. Yeah, this is invitation. All right. Next one, they say we can see that reading is complex process. So reading is not one way which we take. Okay, read it. It's no. It's a complex process. All these skills which we are going to discuss stepwise, you will see they are not so easy. The most complex one is speaking. We will discuss it. It comes in the last. Usually we take speaking like, okay, now just relax and speak. But we will see how many things are involved in the speaking. And that is the most complex out of all the skills, is the speaking one. We can see that reading is a complex process. It involves understanding letters, words, and sentences, understanding the connection between sentences, understanding different text types, making sense of text to our knowledge of the world, and using the appropriate reading subskills. Reading may be a receptive skill, but it certainly isn't a passive one. Passive one means slow. No, it's very active. Active and passive. All right. So all these things we use when we want to understand the text type. Is a letter, is it an invitation card, is it an article, is it a part of the story, or is it a novel, what is it? Okay. Then we try to how we understand that connection between the words and the sentences. All right, different text types are there in it. We try to understand and we try to make sense of it through the knowledge of the world. As we discuss about knowledge of the world, it is the understanding of the social life around us, the information which we get, what is something particular. Okay, so like we gave the example of the Olympic Games. So knowledge of the world is also important to understand the connection between these sentences. One is the sense connection, other is the language connection. The sense connection is coherence, and the language connection is cohesion. And we try to understand a text through coherence and cohesion both. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Any question? Anything you feel was need to be repeated? Right. So now we will go further and see key concepts and the language teaching classroom. As I tell you always, read these tips and pick the ones which are most important for you. Not necessarily whatever the points they have given in this part, all you can adopt. No, sometimes you can adopt to your teaching styles and the teaching environment which you got and the type of students you have. Sometimes you may not, but there might be some good ideas for you which you can take, and with some sort of changes you can adopt in your teaching style. So these ones you need to go to that and find out how it happens in the classroom. But anyhow, we are discussing the whole. First one, they say if learners know how to read in their own language, they can transfer their reading skills to reading in English. Sometimes, though, they find this difficult, especially when their language level is not high. So they need help to transfer these skills. Teacher can check which reading sub-skill their learners are good at, then focus on practicing the sub-skills they are not yet using well. They can also help them by teaching vocabulary, teaching vocabulary from the text before the learners read the text, by asking learners to predict text content, and with certain kinds of learners encouraging them to predict text. Now it's like two languages are there. One language is the learner's mother language. One is the second language they are learning. They may be able to do that sub skill which we are practicing very well in their mother language. Then if we know that they can do that in the mother language, we can encourage them how to do that in English as well. In the second language, maybe whatever the language you may teach English, you may teach French, Chinese, whatever the language is. Okay, so you can take the help if you happen to be also having the same mother language, like if you are Sinhala or Tamil, or your students are also Sinhala or Tamil, it's easy for you to give them the example of that from the mother language and try to ask them to use it on the second language as well. Likewise, they say you can help them out with the pre-teaching vocabulary. When you are going to do something, giving them for the comprehension one, so do the pre-teaching vocabulary, that what type of vocabulary they will be using, they will be facing in that. So then they can figure out the meaning, and it will help them to understand the text in a better way. Okay, so that's the way you just encouraging them to do the reading sub skills. Okay, let's see next what they say. Next one is to help learners bring their knowledge of the world to understand a text. The teacher can do lead-in activities. Highlight it, lead-in activities. You can check that in the glossary also. You will find the meaning of it. Leading activities before the class looks at the text. Leading activities generally involve looking at the picture around a text or at the title and trying to predict what the text will be about. They can also involve using brainstorming. Brainstorming means thinking about listing ideas or vocabulary about a topic. Brainstorming when we give our opinion about the topic. Everyone, so okay, we say brainstorm this topic. Mean each and everyone tells their own opinion. That is called brainstorming. Lead-in activities usually activities which are not the main lesson, but they are related to that lesson. So when they do that activity, you can relate it to the lesson and they get a little bit ready for the lesson. Okay, you can check that in the glossary. You will find the example of it also and definition. To predict what vocabulary the text might contain, discussing the general topic of the text, taking about experience of it. So one thing where the brainstorming is needed, where they can use the knowledge of the world which is needed in order to bring them towards the reading activity. So see that whether they know about that particular topic which is going to be discussed in the reading. So you can just ask and discuss that with them. Okay, so you know that this kind of reading you are going to give to them. So now they are mentally ready with that. Why? Because related to that, you gave some example of it. Okay, you gave some kind of personal experience to them, and they get ready for that. Or you give a topic. Okay, talk about going on a trip. Have you gone on a trip before? What is your experience about? Why? Because they are going to read something about the trip. They have to do a comprehension on the trip. So similar kind of vocabulary you can give, which is used in traveling and accommodation, okay, and used for going on trips. What kind of vocabulary is used in that? So this is what it is like. You prepare the children towards the reading skills. So these are the tips. You can see which one is suitable for you. You can take from that, or with some changes, as I told you, you can adopt in your teaching style. Next point, they tell you giving learners lots of opportunities for extensive reading in or out of class helps them to develop their fluency in reading. You need to make them fluent in reading. Like the children, they take the book, so they take, when they start reading, they read very not fluent. When they are not fluent, how they will read? Like I am reading it. Reading is one of, so they will read like this. It means they are not fluent in reading. As we see, fluent in speaking, it also is fluent in reading. Speaking fluency is that we can, without repeating ourselves or self-correction or a lot of pauses, we can fluently speak, connecting the words with each other. So we say fluency is there. Likewise, reading fluency also you have to check. How? The student should be able to read fast. And for that, you need to have the practice of it by giving them what? Material which is outside of the class. Something, a nice magazine you bring it, an article you bring it, so then they can read it quickly. They build up their reading fluency with that. Not always the textbooks. Apart from the textbooks, they can have some different kind of storybooks, interesting one which they need, like some science fictions or whatever. So, or magazines for the children are there, for the students, and different articles to read it. So you have to encourage them to do those ones in order to improve their fluency in reading. Graded readers. What is graded readers? Books with language made easier for language learners. A very useful way of giving learners extensive reading practice, helping them build up their confidence in reading and consolidate. Highlight the word consolidate. Consolidate the language they know and gradually extend it to include new language. I think I have told you consolidation before. When we want to make firm that they have learned it in a better way, consolidate. So that's we do with the student. Once we teach something, then we do some activities in order to consolidate that lesson in their mind, reinforce them, to make them understand better. Right. Gradually extend to include new language. Nowadays, you can find graded readers on a very wide variety of subjects and a large number of language learning levels. Now, the if you see the textbook of the school, they are graded for each level of the student. The subject of the book are different from the grade 1 up to the grade 10. So nowadays you can find in the libraries, if you get into the bookstores, you get into age-wise, they have put it, these books are for this category of the age. Further, they have graded according to the interest. You are looking for a storybook, you are looking for a science fiction, you are looking for the general knowledge, you are looking for the hobbies book. So they different grading is there. And in that way, it's very easy to find out what we want to read. So encourage the children to find out those kind of things from the library, school library, and they need to read in that to build up their reading habits, which is very much lacking in the student. Watching habits are only developing nowadays by watching the tab and the computer and smartphone. So the reading habits are disappearing. You try to retain that in those ways and make the student to read and improve their reading fluency, right? When they can read quickly something. Next one is which reading skills we need to teach depends on the age and first language of the learners. Some learners of English, for example, young children may not yet know how to read in their own language. They need to learn how letters join, make the words, and how written words relate to spoken words, both in their language and in English. Other learners may not understand the script used in English as their own script is different. For example, Chinese and Arabic. Now, reading skills, when we want to teach, it depends on the age and language of the student. Different age students are taught in different ways. Okay. Moreover, the mother language is also need to know that what's the mother language, because we will talk about it later on in the units, the influence of the mother language in learning the second language. So when they talk about the young learners, the young children, so the young children, they may not understand the whole sub skills of that. So what they need to be taught how to join the letters to make a word. So a word of two letters words, three letter words, four letter words, okay? Likewise, we have to teach them those that they initially they need to do. But if there are some elder learners in that, then we can do in a different way. So that is how it varies with the age and the language skills the student have and the language level they have. So all you don't teach in one way. Every level is to be taught in different way, and you have to figure it out yourself. Sometime they give you something that okay, this is for this level, young learners, but the young learners which you got in your class, their level is kind of lower than that what they have prescribed there normally as a rules. So you have to adjust the material according to the standard of your student. And that's what the teacher is supposed to do, to adjust according to the learning style and the language level and the age of the children. All right. So this is what is the outcome of this point. Next point is we can choose the right text for our learners. Text should be interesting in order to motivate learners. Text should also be at the right level of difficulty. A text may be difficult because it contains complex language or because it's about topic that learners don't know much about. So the right text for the right level of the student, that also you have to look into, that what's the level of your student and what's the text given to that. Okay. And the level of difficulty also, if your students are at basic level and you have given an advanced or upper intermediate level or intermediate level text for them, so definitely they will feel difficult to understand that. So you have to see what you are teaching, the level of that, the difficulty level of the text, the difficulty level of the lesson is matching according to the standard of the level of the language of the student or understanding of the student. So it should match. Okay. It's not be so high for them that they, whatever you say, whatever you teach, for the sake of teaching, you may do it. But actually, the thing is, in the end of the day, we have to see how much a student has learned out of it. So in order to know that, we need to see these things, these steps, the level of difficulty of them, and whether the text is at the right level for the student to understand. Next point is to make sure learners get used to range of text type. We can give them different kinds of text to read. Now, to text types, we want to make them understand, we need to give articles, stories, postcards, email, brochures, leaflet. Then they can differentiate in that. And they can understand these, if they are reading a postcard, how it is written. If it's an article, how it is written. If it's an email, how it comes. So we need to familiarize them with the different text types. Next point is the activities in reading lesson often follow this pattern. Now, when we are going to do the reading lesson activities which we do, it follow number one, introductory activities. What is it? Activities focus on the topic of the text. Some activities which is the topic of the text, what it is related to that. Pre-teaching vocabulary, like you give the pre-teaching vocabulary, the vocabulary which is they have to face in the text coming, you are giving for the exercise. So you first teach the vocabulary of it. When they understand the vocabulary, they will do better on the text. Where is it? Yeah. And possibly asking learners to predict the content of the lesson. So if you give vocabulary, for example, vocabulary is dealing with the traveling. So then you can ask the student that it is what they may say it's a trip, they may say it's a journey, they may say traveling to some this kind of thing we are going to be. So they are doing a prediction based on that vocabulary which you have pre-teaching vocabulary you give before starting the exercise. Number two, main activities. Main activities is what? A series of comprehension activity developing different reading sub-skills, focusing initially on general, then more detailed. Main activity is the lesson of the reading comprehension which you want to give. Is it for the scanning purposes? Is it for the skimming purposes? Is it for the intensive reading? Or is it extensive reading? Or is it inferring the attitude of that? Or is it predicting what type of activity in the reading you want to give to them? That is the main activity for that. Post-task activity. What is it? Post-task activities asking learners to talk about how the topic of the text relates to their own lives or to give their opinions on something in the text. That these activities require learners to use some of the language they have met in the text. Now, when they finish the main activity, after that, you can ask the question to discuss that, like in the speaking, okay, have you ever experienced personally in that what we discuss or we read in the text, okay? Or then what happened in that they practice the language, and one activity like reading activity you do, along with that it comes in the writing also. Okay, write about it. What you read in this, do you have any personal experience of it, or speak about it? So you at the same time you do different other skills practice also based on one. And after the post task, the main is done, different sort of activity. It depends what you want to improve in your children. What are they weak at? If they are weak at speaking, you can have a speaking activity based on the reading which they did. If they are weak in the writing, you do a writing activity. Let them to write that what they read over there, what they discuss over there. Okay. So these are the different types of activities which you can do while you are doing the reading skills development. Now, this is a notice for you people. You can just read for your knowledge. So that's it. Is it clear? Any question for me you want to ask? Yes.
Yes, sir.
I suppose no question is there.